bet you're wondering, what is going on anyway? I'm a little late this time, and I think that has to do with the meaning of this full moon cycle. Maybe that's just a little bit of self-excusing, but that's okay. I'm my own boss, and I gave myself an extension, and here we are a couple days after the full moon, and hopefully I have a little more insight than I had before. I was really wondering what was going on anyway when I got one of the worst migraines I've had. And it's been a long time since I've had them this badly. I've got lots of resources and support and ways that I can mitigate them before they get bad. I do get them pretty regularly, but I feel like I've been able to integrate them into my life. I don't like them, but I feel like I've been able to handle them more recently. This was not one of those times. It was a full-out battle and surrender, lots of puking, and so much pain. It was spread out over days, so several days of this nauseated pain in my head. It's really hard for me to think straight, to make good decisions. I just had to keep letting go of what I had planned, and that's really hard. It's hard to admit that I can't do what I normally can, and that for a while I'm just incapacitated. It's hard for me to enter that parallel reality. I want to say there's not much space in our world for it to be okay to be sick. I want to blame it sort of on our society, but it's very internalized for me. I don't know if it's okay for me to be sick. I don't know if I have value if I'm not doing what I usually do. This is sort of an old story. I've talked about this a lot. Is it okay to just be? I'm still discovering that. It's big, probably a life question for me. Even still, even after all that we've been through with the pandemic, which really has changed the way we handle sickness everywhere, it still doesn't quite feel okay to be sick. It's like everything is just riding on getting better. Even my well-meaning friends and family who are saying, get better soon, feels like I better get better soon. Like I'm not likable until I'm better. Or, of course they're just wanting me to feel better. But I feel that urgency that I'd better get better because I'm making other people uncomfortable somehow. Inconveniencing people. Didn't get my podcast out. Had to cancel my class. Couldn't meet some of the obligations that I had for the week. And also, meanwhile, my migraine has something to say. Migraine, when it's fully with me, makes me disgusted with the world. I mean, of course, it doesn't help that I'm nauseated, but that's part of it. Nothing smells right. I can only eat the very simplest food, if anything at all. Social media is absolutely vile to that throbbing, nauseated pain. It's really a whole different way of occupying myself. Besides the pain part, it is interesting to see life differently. And I guess this is all just reminding me and us through the podcast that full moons can really feel full. I know that sounds really simple, but I need reminding. I think we all need reminding that just about every full moon, I start to feel overdone, overfull, and maxed out. Besides the migraine stuff, I feel that way. And it takes me a minute to remember that the moon's fullness is contributing to this feeling. I'm in tune with this long tide, this long breath in, and this long breath out. And I wonder if this year, after having a whole year of really watching the moons and feeling them, I wonder if this year I can peer ahead just a little bit and give myself the insight that, this is going to give me that opening to work on a new idea, project, relationship. Sometimes there's times where I know I need to reach out to that person or to that old friend, but this is not the time for that. Sometimes new moons can be the time for that. We have a little bit more spaciousness. Full moons are that fullness. The full tide is in with us, and we're sloshing around with everything that we've accumulated for 2 weeks. I really think there's something to giving myself the leeway, the pre-planning that full moons might not go as I expect. I was thinking to myself, I can't handle any more. This is too much. I'm overwhelmed. I have said that to myself a lot. And I wonder, what was I thinking when I thought I could take on multiple projects and simply just go through life at the same time? The moon made me recognize something about my desire to take on more than I can really fulfill at any one time. Sort of like a hoarding of plans and ideas and possibilities in that way. So what does this full moon have to offer us in terms of wisdom or guidance, and what can we know? I keep having these repetitive thoughts around, what is this for? What am I actually striving for? Why is life like this? Can I just be content with things as they are, without that striving for something more, something different, something new? The striving in that moment when I was in so much pain, in the deep fullness of the full moon, that striving was getting me nowhere. And I wondered, maybe the wisdom here is in that Gandhi quote. This might not be completely accurate, but it goes something like, everything you do will be insignificant, but you must do it nevertheless. I feel this washing over of humility, realizing we all have things. We all have projects and strivings. Like, I want to paint the ceiling in my kitchen. Do I have to do it? Nope. Will it make me feel content and fulfilled and all the good things? Probably not for very long. But I still have this feeling that I have to do it, that I'll be more satisfied if I do it. And just in that same moment, I think to myself, I need to be reminded that all of this isn't real. Life, I mean. This is all a big play, but we still have to play in it. We still have roles and lines, and we have to block out spaces and ways of being. We're here in this experience of living. I can't tell exactly why that's so important to me, but I think it's important. I always want to ask spiritual teachers, what is the meaning of life? And maybe the answer is the meaning is in the doing, right? It's not what we do in the long term. I'm not here to save the world, but I am here to play this one part in the play of creation. Maybe there's no meaning at all, but I know there's doing. And there's a miracle that we are spiritual beings that can be in bodies and play around with other souls and bodies, not just human souls, but all kinds in material form. We can play with bird spirits and dog spirits and tree spirits and stone spirits and grasses and ponds and brooks. And isn't that a miracle? And of course, we also interact with ideas. And I'm going to throw this one in there. We interact with dead people's ideas and their problems and their dramas and their struggle. There's lots of that too. But we're here now, and that's the point. That might be the meaning of life. Surprise! That's a real treasure, right? Didn't you always want to know what the meaning of life is? That we're here. The meaning is in the doing. Somehow, when we're able to stand back and appreciate the dance of all of it, that forward, back, tap, tap, sway of the little dramas that we participate in, I think there's an appreciation somewhere. So I would say that this moon says yes, overfull, you're right. Bring appreciation to this full overwhelm, and that gratitude saves our ass this time. It's a long game to believe in human dreams. Sort of like painting the ceiling. There's one thing that satisfies, and then that satisfaction fades or dissolves into another task that might feel satisfying. And all the little things like, I would like to write an article, and I would like to print that t-shirt and produce those cards, and maybe that long game, because of all the doing involved in that long game, maybe that's worth it. Part of this feeling of being overfull, overwhelmed, has to do with the current political landscape and this feeling that people are speaking out, reaching out to representatives, and that they're not being heard. And I ask myself the question, what happens to people when they speak out over and over again, express their frustrations, and they go unheard and unacknowledged? What happens to babies when they are put through the cry it out method of sleep training? Yes, eventually the baby gives up crying. That expression becomes useless. It doesn't give them the comfort that they need. The baby gives up and learns to live or cope with a certain level of abandonment. I wonder if we as people are sort of living through collective sleep training. Since October 7th, people have been calling their representatives for a permanent ceasefire in record numbers, and no effective change has resulted. People feel unheard, underrepresented. And that doesn't just go away, that turns into something else. And to me, it points to what so many astrologers are saying about this time. They're saying revolution. It creates a revolutionary spirit. Think about those babies who didn't have a bonded connection with their caregivers. And notice how easily we talk about rebellious teenagers. I mean, I know that takes a while from baby to teenager, but it's very familiar for us to think about teenagers out of control. That idea doesn't surprise anyone. Rebellious teenagers, that's a very common idea in our culture. Though, if you've ever met one of these teenagers, they can be the most idealistic, full of ideas and dreams, sure of their hopes. Just these most delightful people that want to participate in the larger world. I wonder if people are starting to express that sense of not being heard, and that there could be a large-scale expression of rebellion. I don't know. I was just thinking about that. More recently, I watched a video of a woman who was loudly expressing her anger. It felt rebellious to a city council in Texas, and her focus was around permanent ceasefire in Gaza. And she was so angry that when she was younger, she recited the Pledge of Allegiance faithfully, and she trusted it and believed in it, only to realize that those words, liberty and justice for all, are empty. Now, the city council isn't responsible for her saying the Pledge of Allegiance. She might need to go to the school board or take that issue of mandatory pledge speaking with the courts. I don't know. I mean, I don't think the city council was responsible for that. but it was a place for her to express herself. Her anger around the issue and her bravery to share that publicly has me feeling that revolutionary vibe, you know? I personally have always felt very odd about the Pledge of Allegiance. When I was a little kid and you had to put your hand over your heart, I looked it up a little bit. There was until, was it 1932? There was instructions about it. You can read them. You can look it up. That you put your you do a salute. You salute like a military salute, and the students are supposed to be like standing in ranked order. I don't know what that means. And then when you say to the flag, you reach your arm out, palm up. Was it palm up? Yeah, palm up, pointing to the flag. And they had to take that out because it was too much like the Heil Hitler salute. So then it just became put your hand over your heart. That's just a little trivia. It's so weird, the Pledge of Allegiance. If you're not American and you're listening to this, I don't even want to recite it. You can Google it. It's just weird American propaganda. In the 80s, we were fed all of this sorts of information about the Soviet Union and how they were brainwashing their citizens, and that there was all this USSR, Soviet Union propaganda. And here we were thinking that we were the free ones, you know, we were I just remember watching the Olympics, and there was big commentary about the Soviet athletes and how they didn't have the same rights and freedoms as I know, which is probably true, right? But we were completely not looking at the ways that we are brainwashed. I wasn't when I was a kid watching that. I was like, I'm so lucky to be American. I found a replacement that I love so much that helps me unbrainwash that pledge in my mind. And it follows the pattern that so many of us have memorized. It's nice to hear when I say it out loud. I can hear and feel the sound of the difference of deeply believing the words that I've spoken. So I'm going to read it to you. I pledge allegiance to the earth of our beloved solar system and to all of her creatures, for here they dwell, one planet, united in harmony with universal love and compassion for all. And when I say that, I just think, imagine if I said that every day at school. And that was what was at the heart of my education. It's very different. So my sister Becca and I both had really crappy, unwell weeks. I had a terrible migraine. Her back went into spasm and she couldn't locomote like she normally does. And we were both just sinking down into a state of needing help, rather than both of us are typically more in the realm of help providers. So of course we both wanted to blame it on the full moon. We have long text conversations. She says, it was weird to be so non-functional, like not even of the world. I reply, I'm still not back in the world. It's a slow re-entry. She replies, make your re-entry as slow as you can. I can see I'm already pushing too hard, like something has to shift and I don't know how to shift it. Break some paradigm and live into the new one. I reply, I think that's the full moon message, actually. There's no way to the new by continuing all the old ways. Becca says, it makes me feel defeated, like I can't learn anything new. Like, how will we ever get there? Yeah, me too, I say. So tired and defeated. I feel like I've already, quote, given it my all, and still, crickets. She says, right? At least we've moved out of despair. Side note, we are both feeling a little bit better at this point. ... I say, I have to look up despair. And then both of us, almost at the same moment, wrote complete loss or absence of hope. I said, ha, 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 because we were on the same page with that. And I said, I don't have complete loss or absence of hope. It's always there. She says, but I lost it this week when I was in too much pain. What is the purpose of pain? Paradigm change? I say, certainly it shifts us. I think completely differently. Becca says, we just have to keep some of that change, like remembering that movement is a miracle. That's what I thought when even the moment of breathing was painful. And I'm reading you this text exchange with Becca's permission because I think that is part of the message of the full moon, that we need whatever's going on for us, and certainly many of us have shitty things going on, whatever's going on for us, that piece of gratitude that fuels appreciation is the thing that is the gold. That's the special, special stuff. That's what maybe the purpose is for, because I think that fuels something that lights our spirits up and fuels passion and connection and creativity. Now, right after that, I opened up this book that I'm reading, Peter Kingsley's A Book of Life. And this is rooted in Sufism, and it's a wonderful book. And after that long chat with my sister, I read this excerpt. Clinical depression, acute and chronic and manic and mild, is always treated as something to avoid, get rid of, suppress, destroy. You'd have to be crazy to consider the possibility that depression isn't a human disease, but a divine one, or that depression in humans is a painfully precious message telling the story, for anyone able to hear, of what's gone wrong in the world of the sacred. Nobody dares suppose that maybe it afflicts those who are more sensitive than usual for a very good reason, because beings far greater and wiser than us, the beings to whom we owe our own existence, are searching for the most sensitive people to touch and reach out to in their grief at what humans have done. The problem isn't the depression. Our fiction of a civilization is the problem. Nobody cares to go down to the underworld anymore, truly go down, not as some nice exercise in imagination, but as the reality of dying before one dies, because nobody knows how to. So, of course, the underworld has to come to us. Well, I read that and I thought it answered Becca's question pretty well. What's the point of pain? Perhaps pain is the underworld coming to us, to talk to us, to teach us, to show us, and yes, to create paradigm change. So what does this mean for our oracle this time? What do we get? What does this full moon have to tell us? What can we learn about from the oracle? And the hexagram that we got is 19, nearing. How does this want to grow? How can you take responsibility for its development? What would your greater self do? Nearing means drawing closer and gazing down over what you approach. There are two strands of meaning here: the approach of a greater spirit or presence in an ongoing process of growth, and your approach as the one who pays attention and takes responsibility. Like the creative drive of hexagram 1, this great growing energy comes from the source, asks for your full participation, and seeks to reach fruition and be realized. Having something to show for a process of growth doesn't mean you've arrived at its outcome. Harvest is not the end. As each harvest is gathered in and stored, the seasonal cycle of growth continues. You need to stay present to its ongoing changes, wherever they might lead. Now that answers my question of like the ceiling. No, when I paint my ceiling, I'm not going to be ultimately satisfied. but it solves one process of growth. And I think that's where we get back to this idea of the meaning is in the doing. The hexagram has one changing line, line 1, influence nearing, constancy, good fortune. And it moves to hexagram 7, the army. Now, we have gotten the army a lot, so my eyes are open to what that means to me, what that feels like to me. And again, to me, it means who is your network of people? Who are your collaborators, your partnerships, your support? Where are you getting funding? I'm saying that because I just took a grant writing course. And that's what I'm thinking. But, one of the things that you have to consider when you're looking at asking for funding is who are all the partnerships that you're involved with, and how will this support this funding being put into place appropriately and successfully. So 7, the army, that's all the people around you. This is your community. This is your family. Are your friends. So the questions here are, what are you aiming for? How can you get more from your strengths? And with all your efforts, are you creating the life you want? And in terms of me and the reaching out for funding for grant projects, in that projects, with all the effort, which is a lot of effort, am I creating the project that I want, or am I creating the project that I think will get funding? That's just a mini little exercise. Sorry to throw that in there. My brain is all in that mode. Army. When there is a cause, the ruler raises an army. So when there's a cause, when you find something that's worth aligning, that's worth gathering for, the ruler raises an army. This is a time when everything revolves around a central objective. Inner and outer resources are realigned and ordered in accordance with it. It's important that a mature leader takes responsibility. So we've got responsibility twice here, right? And responsibility, I love this definition of responsibility, which is your ability to respond. Not being over-responsible, not taking on other people's work, but how able are you to respond to a changing environment is responsibility. And the more flexible and adaptable you are to the changing environment, the more responsible you're capable of being. So what this implies is self-care. You need to be flexible and strong and rested and fed and not resentful. Should I throw that one in there? Or is that too intimate? I think it's all right to get intimate. You've got to let go of some things, right? To be able to fully respond, you need to take care of yourself. So I'm going to come back around to what I mentioned last podcast, which is I am trying something new this year. And you might have heard, because those of you who get my emails, if you want to be one of those people, P.S., please sign up for them on my website, www.annheadley.com, or just reach out to me and let me know, and I can add you manually to that list. I'm adding online Zoom class every 2 weeks to bring somatic work to the theme of the podcast. So if you've taken my class, you know that it stays pretty gentle. I'm not interested in coaching you to some kind of sweaty fitness. Now, for the record, I did want to be that sort of sexy fitness instructor, but it was sort of for me, those bad dreams where you have to run, but your whole body is in slow motion. You're trying harder and harder to run, and the harder you try, the slower you go. That's me teaching. I just can't stop with this slow inner somatic work. It has been the way I've taught class since I was taking dancer as teacher in college. So I just know that's the way I am, which may give you some relief that this is going to be a gentle class using your body to find access to some of these themes that come up as we travel through a year of moons. This slow inner work does seem deeply necessary. I do believe in it. I will sometimes ask us to shake, jump about, dance, or improvise. I'll ask us to lay down and hum. We'll do eye exercise. I'm just trying to run through all of them to give you an idea if you're completely unfamiliar with me and the way I do a movement practice and you're just not sure you would want to try that. We do reclining twists. I often bring freedom yoga in, which is an intuitively led self-practice, which is like a little bit of improvisation following your inner guidance, following that lead of desire for movement to flow through you while you do this with other people that holds you accountable to the present moment. And we will have a chance to talk and have a little bit of Q&A as well in these sessions. So that's a lot of words. What I really want is that you just show up and join me, and I get to have the experience of having online classes again, which I did do during the pandemic, and then I sort of faded away from that as I moved back into studio work and in-person work. But I'm ready to bring the Zoom part back because there are so many of you out there that can't join me in the studio, and I just would like to open up a little window so you can actually join me here, see what's going on here. Those Zoom classes are available through my website. You'll just, on that very first homepage, you can see a place where you can click on Zoom classes, and it opens up my Acuity page scheduling, and you can choose any one of the classes and sign up for it. I have a suggested fee of $15, but you can also join for free or for your choice and just say pay later, and it will pull you through to the Zoom link for the class. That's going to be every other Friday. I'm not going to do them on the moon dates. I'm just going to choose Friday so I can schedule it into my studio a little easier. So do go look at my website for that. And please join me on those Fridays. I really look forward to it. As always, you can go to my Patreon page and offer me support there. That's www.patreon.com/watermoonstudios. You can reach out to me for other support, of course. I'm always open to that as well. Be well. May you be well. May all beings be well. May you know peace. May all beings know peace. Until next time, thank you for listening and being here with me. Bye for now.